So let's talk about Hiram Abiff, who represents the builder, versus the ruffians. Alright, put simply, in terms we could all understand, the ruffians are the three stooges here. We got Jubella at the south gate, who hits Hiram Abiff with a 24-inch gauge across the throat, and some say this represents the suppression of speech by the state. So this is the suppression as dictated by the CIA. This is Curly. Then we have Jubello at the west gate, who hits Hiram Abiff with a square across the chest, and people say this represents the suppression of spiritual belief or suppression of love by the Vatican. So Jubello could be known as Mo. You guys know the Three Stooges. We got Curly, CIA Curly, and Vatican Mo. And who's left? Jubello from the East Gate, Larry the Plant, who uses a common maul or a hammer to hit Hiram Abiff on the head, represents suppression of intellect by the common masses, or Larry the Plants. So who's standing in the position of Hiram Abiff, the builder, who actually wants to not only search for light, which the Masons say that they're in search for light in all the degrees, right? But they also want to bring light to others or build a temple. So you got William Morgan standing in the position of Hiram Abiff. So this man, William Morgan, was building something. No one tried to come and take this by force from him, except members of the craft, members of the order, people that take these oaths that talk about, they're all about light and spreading light. These are the men that are going to come and attack him and kill him or bully him into a secret society because he wants to build something, because he wants to share with other people so they could figure out some of these mysteries. Because what he's getting at in all this is that he doesn't understand the mysteries. And a lot of the people within the order, they don't understand the mysteries either. He says in other parts of this book that after reading this, you'll know more than most of the Freemasons do, because they just memorize this stuff for a little ritual, and then they like their little badges and stuff, and like to run around and, you know, wear the little medals and their little aprons and things. But what about knowledge? What about advancing the human species? The Vatican and their Freemasonic minions go against that. In America, we should all be free, and information should be free and available to all of you. But Freemasonry says no. Certain knowledge is not for everyone. Well, if it wasn't for William Morgan and his bravery, I wouldn't know about this. I wouldn't be making this video and sharing it with you. I am not a Freemason. So because of what he did, I could do what I'm doing now. And I could shed some light on the mysteries where this pathetic order has failed. So I'm going to finish with the introduction. In the absence of the author, or rather compiler of the following work, who was kidnapped and carried away from the village of Batavia on the 11th day of September 1826 by a number of Freemasons, it devolves upon the publisher to attempt to set forth some leading views that govern those who embarked in the undertaking, to contend with prejudice, and to struggle against customs and opinions which superstition, time, and ignorance have hallowed, requires time, patience, and magnanimity. When we begin to pull down the strongholds of error, the batteries we level against them, though strong and powerful and victorious at last, are at first received with violence. And when in our conquering career we meet with scoffs and revelings from the besieging partisans of untenable positions, it the more forcibly impresses us. We are but men, and that in every work of reformation and renovation we must encounter various difficulties. When we view man in the infancy of society, as in the childhood of existence, he is weak, powerless, and defenseless. But in his manhood and riper years, he has grown to his full stature and stands forth in commanding attitude, the favored and acknowledged Lord of the world. For his comfort and well-being as a member of society, rules and regulations are necessary. In the various stages of his progress, these systematic improvements undergo various changes according to circumstances and situations. What is proper and necessary in one grade of society is wholly useless and may be alarming in another. Opinions and usages that go down in tradition and interfere not with our improvements in social concerns adhere to us more closely and become entwined in all our feelings. It is to this we owe our bigoted attachment to antiquity. It is this that demands us a superstitious reverence for the opinions and practices of men of former times, and closes the ear against truth and blinds the eye to the glare of new light and new ascensions of knowledge, through which medium only can they break in upon the mind. We have within ourselves the knowledge, and everywhere around us the proofs that we are beings destined not to stand still. In our present state of advancement, we look with pity on the small progress of our fathers in arts and sciences and social institutions, and when compared with our elevated rank, we have just cause of pride and of grateful feelings. They did well for the times in which they lived, but to the ultimatum of perfectibility we are nearer, and in the monuments we have before us of the skill and genius of our times and age, we have only fulfilled those destinies for which we were created. And we object to every obstacle that opposes or attempts to oppose the will of heaven. In the present enlightened state to which society has advanced, we contend that the opinions and tenets and pretended secrecies of olden times handed down to us should be fully, fairly, and freely canvassed, that from the midst and darkness which we hung over them, they should come out before the open light of day, and be subjected to the rigid test of candid investigation. These preliminary remarks lead us to the main object of our introduction. We come to lay before the world of claims of an institution which has been sanctioned by ages, venerated for wisdom, and exalted for light, but an institution whose benefits have always been overrated and whose continuance is not in the slightest degree necessary. We meet it with its high requirements, its time-honored customs, its swelling titles, and shall show it in its nakedness and simplicity. Strip it of all its borrowed trappings, and it is a mere nothing, a toy not now worthy the notice of a child to sport with. We look back to it at one period as a cement of society and bond of union, to view it as, at one time, a venerable fort, but now in ruins, which contain within its walls many things that dignified and adored human nature. We give it due credit for the services it has done, but at present, when light has gone abroad into the uttermost recesses and corners of the world, when information is scattered wide around us and knowledge is not closeted in cloisters and cells, but stalks abroad with her beams of light and her honors and rewards, we may now, when our minority has expired, act up to our character and look no longer to Masonry as our guide and conductor. It has nothing in it now valuable that is not known to every inquiring mind. It contains, wrapped up in its supposed mysteries, no useful truth, no necessary knowledge that has not gone forth to the worlds through other channels and by other means. If we would climb the highest ascent of human science and trace the mighty progress of human genius in every gigantic effort of mind in logic, geometry, mathematics, chemistry, and every other branch of knowledge, we ridicule the idea that Masonry, in her retirements, contains the arts and sciences. The origin of the institution is easily traced in the rude ages of the world to a body of mechanics or a corporation of operative workmen who form signs and regulations the more easily to carry out their work and protect their order. The very obligations solemnly rendered to every member carry the strongest internal evidence of the semi-barbarity that prevailed at the time of the institution of the order. In the course of time, as society increased and knowledge became more general, it spread, and embracing in its grasp other objects than at first it enrolled in its ranks, men of the first respectability in wealth, talents, and worth. But that there is anything intrinsically valuable in the signs, symbols, or words of Masonry, no man of sense will contend. That there is any hidden secret which operates as a talisman charm on its possessors, every man of intelligence, Mason or no Mason, must candidly acknowledge. It is worse than idleness for the defenders of the order at the present day to entrench themselves behind their outward show, the semblance before the world, and to say they are in possession of superior knowledge. We pretend not to act under a cover. We shall tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Masonry, it is true, has long been eulogized in songs. It has formed the burden of the poet's theme and been the subject of the orator's best performances. Fancy has been almost exhausted in bringing out new flowers to deck the fairy queen. But when we come behind the scenes, that is the picture we behold. Are we to rest satisfied in the ips dixit of others, or to examine the truth for ourselves? The touchstone is before our readers in the present publication. Masonry is of itself naked and worthless. It consists of gleanings from the Holy Scriptures and from the arts and sciences which have shone in the world, linking itself with philosophy and science and religion. On this, it rests all its claims to veneration and respect. Take away this borrowed aid and it falls to ruins. Much weight is still attached to the argument that as a tie uniting men, that as a significant speech, symbolically speaking every language and at the same time embodying its institution, everything that is valuable, it should command respect. We meet this argument with facts that cannot be controverted. Are we astonished at the wild and heedless manner in which many of the votaries of Masonry rush into every excess, putting at defiance the laws of our civil institutions, which suffer no one to be put in jeopardy but by due forms, and disregarding the command of the Most High, which says, "Thou shalt not kill"? We could readily trace the cause to the impressions and practices obtained from its false tenets and deceptive arrogance. Masonry is to the modern world that the whore of Babylon was to the ancient, and is the beast with 7 heads and 10 horns, ready to tear out our bowels and scatter them to the 4 winds of heaven. Masonry gives rogues and evil-minded characters an opportunity of visiting upon their devoted victim all the ills attending combined power when exerted to accomplish destruction. It works unseen at all silent hours and secret time and places, and like death, when summoning his diseases, pounces upon its devoted subject and lays him prostrate in the dust. Like the great enemy of man, it has shown its cloven foot and put the public upon its guard against its secret machinations. This part of the subject requires no further discussion, either by way of ridicule or downright sincerity, but the remark, which cannot be too often reiterated, that the world in its present advanced state requires no such order for our social intercourse. And when the Masonic mania prevails, as it now does in this country, we are exalting a mere human ordinance with its useless trumpery and laughable accompaniments for the sublime and adorned lessons of heaven.